Bill, you're a co-host now, and Austin, I can do the same for you if that helps.
Sure.
Yep, let me pull up the PowerPoint. Tell me you're able to see it full screen.
We sure are.
Okay. All right. So everything's still looking good. Video is good. Audio is good.
Great. Yep.
All right. Excellent. Should we start or?
Yeah, go ahead. We're recording.
All right, great. Excellent opportunity to again have some meaningful dialogue with everyone in attendance. A quick self-introduction. My name is Bill Louie, principal architect. I'm actually been in the profession of architecture for 38 years, and all but one of those years happened with PBK. The area of focus for me primarily is the public safety / municipal / civic facility. So I'm very comfortable in dealing with the various public agencies, processes, procedures, you name it. I finished my first fire station design and construction in 1987, 3 years out of college. Had a very unique opportunity to be able to participate in something like a fire station. It's a serious building so early in my career. So that's what's sort of driven my passion for this type of project.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Austin Dunkley. I'm an associate principal here at PBK, also a licensed architect. And I have been here for 14 years now, 14 and a half-ish. I just want to share a small little piece of my story. So I'm a Cal Poly grad, and I mentioned that before, but in December of 2007, I actually spent my 4th year in Washington, DC. And so through a series of kind of unfortunate and humorous events, I ended up not having a place to live for a month and spent that month living under my desk in studio. So fast forward 6 months to summer of 2008, and I met Bill for the first time. And Bill hired me on as a designer. And shortly after that, started working on my first fire station and have been working on stations ever since and really haven't looked back. So I'm hoping that we can continue this relationship and looking forward to kind of hearing each one of your stories and getting to know you guys better as we go forward.
That's an interesting story, Austin. To make Austin feel comfortable, the first 6 months, we put a cot underneath his desk for him to sleep over.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill.
Moving right along. So our corporation, a lot of numbers and data and everything here, but I'll just point out a few things. We have 8 California offices throughout the state. Local offices, both in the Bay Area and in the Sacramento area, and also an office in the San Luis Obispo area that would all be resourced together to deliver this project for you if we were selected. The firm has done over 300 fire stations, some remodels, some small kitchen additions, some full-blown, some master planning, full gamut, but very, very versed in this project type. Our in-house resources is unmatched in the industry. We have all the required engineering disciplines in-house, in addition to interiors and building envelope and FF&E if that's desired, which is fixtures, furnishing, and equipment. And then lastly, Austin, myself, and all the other principal architects in the corporation are all practicing architects, meaning that we are there in the trenches with you in developing the project from day one. A quick timeline of our history in this project type. Our first actual project, function project, was completed in 1977. I joined the firm in 1984, and since then, hundreds of SoCal projects, but then starting in Gilroy here in 2002 is the beginnings of a Northern California experience. I just want to point out that while there are many agencies represented here, the the building type we know very, very well. We've done so many large numbers of stations that each one is specifically tailored to the agency, the operations, and also the exterior architecture, meaning that it needed to fit into whatever site that the station happened to sit in. As a prime example is this second row here, the Fremont Fire Department, City of Fremont. We've completed 5 projects for them, 4 fire stations here, and then a training facility here. I wanted to point that out because this is a unique opportunity to be able to service a particular agency with multiple projects, which we have many agencies like that. For instance, this project here in San Mateo was done about 8 years ago. This one here was the second one we did for San Mateo, completed just last year. And a few others. Scottsdale is one. Scottsdale, we did 2 projects in Scottsdale as well. Out of that experience, we come to understand basically the requirement of just doing simple design, selecting simple, durable material in a way to basically allow your firemen, your crew, to do what they do best, which is serve the community. They should not have to worry about basically the upkeep and the maintenance of the facilities. Although there are certain things that has to be done, but the selection of durable, high-lasting, long-lasting materials could go a long way in terms of making them a little bit more efficient in their daily activities. The team structure, let me just kick it off here. Again, I'll be the project lead. I'll be your project contact for all management related activities, contracts, schedules, costs, even the design I'll be participating in. And Austin is going to be our lead in terms of making sure that our rest of our engineering team members are on board. So Austin, why don't you make a...
Yeah, absolutely. So we also have Max and Jefferson listed there. Max and Jefferson have done so many stations and they have just a wealth of experience. So very, very valuable members of our PBK team. And then our consultants are made up of a group that has been paired with us for years and years and years. And especially structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, those disciplines will typically keep them with us, and they're just really good. So they are handpicked. They are kind of our A team. And the matrix on the right-hand side just gives you an example of how many projects we've done together. Our civil and our landscape consultants, they've also done a handful with us for sure, but those are usually more of our regional specialists, so they know the native vegetation and stormwater requirements. Right.
So just a quick addition to this matrix is this shows a grouping of our Northern California projects. The team, the core team, meaning the building engineering team of structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, it travels with us, and actually they participate in all of our 5 projects throughout the state. So in California, Northern California, Central California, coastal. So we like to keep basically that team, that core team together, so that we have a knowledge of what everyone is doing. We're very, very efficient in that way, able to process information quickly. Our process is a very simple: listen, learn, and then lead. Break it down real quickly here. We don't know your project other than the fact that it has been a feasibility analysis done, space program done that identifies some program areas, but we still need to listen to more of the other gap information that is needed to really put together a good recipe for designing this project. So we're very good listeners, meetings, community involvement. We toy with building physical models if needed when the time comes. Then we learn about the project a little bit more by documenting all of our discussions. Space program, cost estimates, which will occur at every checkpoint along the process, project schedule, management, and documenting meeting minutes. With that, we're then able to launch into leading the sort of the design effort in coming up with quick sketches. And these are preliminary hand sketches that are done. And I know these are very small, and so if there's any part of this you want me to zoom into, let me know. But we do many of these initial ideas quickly via hand sketches, just to sort of put the recipe on paper. Once we understand essentially the program design to a point where we can advance it to a more refined scale drawing, we utilize our Office drafting software, CAD and Revit, and then we can then apply a 3D exterior option to the design efforts. Community engagement mentioned earlier, a very integral part of a public project such as this. We're very comfortable in community forums. We are active participants, or we can be just support based on how your district and your personnel, what your needs are. Fire station design, there's a handful of sort of typical comments we hear all the time at community meetings. What is the issue with noise? What is the issue with nighttime lighting? What's the impact on traffic? In this particular case, your site, what's the impact on sight lines from your adjacent parcel and neighbors? So we're able to speak to those type of questions and concerns based on our vast experience.
Yeah, so now we're getting into the project here. This bottom right, this is your site. I'm sure you recognize that, an aerial view. Let me just start off by saying that this project has some really fun advantages and some great things going for it. Specifically, your location is unmatched, great access. There's opportunities for views and daylighting that abound. Solar orientation is great. We can put solar panels on here. We can also maximize our heating and cooling efforts because of that. And passive cooling is another one that, because of the coastal breezes, we can cut down on life cycle costs for the facility. But as I'm sure you know, there are a lot of challenges with this site and with the project. And the 3 snapshots on the left are taken from the feasibility study that was done. So there's 3 swings at this thing, and each one kind of emphasized that there were, it's just tough. It's tough, and there were challenges to it that you might see through potential conflicts with the return drive and some of these options conflicting with some of the site equipment and site features and site parking. There was compromises to the program that had to be made just to minimize it, to fit everything in this site, inefficiencies because of the shape of the site. And the reason for those challenges is because the site is small in comparison to your program. On the top right-hand corner there, you see that 22,000 square feet is roughly the area of the site. And it's rough. It's taken from a Google Earth measurement tool. And the program is 11,000 plus square feet. That's over a 0.51 floor area ratio, over 51%. That's a lot of coverage. And then you factor in the 8 staff parking and 3 public parking and the need for a return drive. That's a lot. The shape is maybe inefficient. The slope of the site starts to eat up some of that available space. So retaining walls are required. And then on top of that, we have sightline issues like Bill mentioned previously, to be a good neighbor and try to keep this thing as low as we can, and strategically provide massing that doesn't interfere with people's views. And then we have a repeater station that we know of that we have to keep operational. So I think the options to move forward are either to reduce the size of the program and compromise, which is not something that we want to do, and it's not something that would serve your community, or we swing for the fences and dig into this thing and figure out how to make it happen. And the way to do that is, I guess experience is a big deal. Experience matters. And thankfully, we actually have experience on some challenging sites similar to what you guys are working with.
Yeah, this particular slide here shows 3 specific projects. The one on the far left, Fremont Fire Station 2, it's basically in the Niles district, postage stamp site, essentially just north of a quarter acre, 11,000 and change. The solution there was to pull the building up and make it a frontage to the public sidewalk. So in order to encompass sort of the available parcel area that we have to work with, we were able to get a 2-story, almost 8,000 square foot building with 6 parking stalls on that site. It has the full requirements of generator and fueling and all that stuff as well. We don't have a site aerial that show you that design or that layout, but we were able to corkscrew based on the station program and the site program into the site. The middle one, San Mateo Fire Station 25, the unique challenge in here was grading. There was a fall of 30 feet across the site. The bottom aerial that you see there shows a parking on the left and then basically station on the right. We had to be creative in how the not only the vehicle access happened, but also pedestrian and circulation happened. So we created almost like a split level 2-story concept to work with the site so that we don't have a complete cut and a large 25-foot tall retaining wall. So we're able to sort of contour the site to make that station work with the available contours that feed the frontage of the site.
And then the one on the right-hand side is Hollister Fire Station 1. You'll see the site area is 12,600 and the program is 12,400. That's almost a 1-to-1 ratio there, which is pretty amazing. The way that we made this work is we just built to the edges of the property lines. We had to be careful that nothing extended out past that property line until we were about 10 feet clear. I think that's what the ordinance stated. And then if you'll notice, there's almost like a bridge where we span some of the second floor out and across the access into their yard back there. Bill's pointing there with the arrow. So this is a good one because it's actually very similar to your program, 12,400 square feet, but on half of the site, if you can believe that. All right, now we're getting into the site design. The orange shape in the middle is the potential future footprint. And again, like Bill's mentioned, this is done without input from you guys. So it's just the first pass, but we want to emphasize that this can work and we can figure this out. Starting at the bottom left-hand corner, that's our return drive. There's 3 public parking stalls. There's a rolling gate. And as you pass through that, you can see sort of the dashed line where the apparatus would return into the bay. We're able to fit all 8 staff parking stalls around the back, as well as the fuel tank, the generator, the comm building, exterior decon area. And we were able to do this by fitting the biggest pieces on first, which was the apparatus bay in the middle, and then figuring out how much area we needed for the return drive, and then kind of shaping the rest of the building to fill the gaps of this unique site. You can go to the next slide, Bill. There we go. So this is our first floor plan. On the bottom left area, you'll see a call out for the lobby that's in blue. There's a dashed line on the outside of that represents an exterior overhang. So this would be a very pleasant covered entry, and that's actually the second floor that would be extending out to create that. The blue area shows where public can access. So they would flow from the lobby into the community room, but to get anywhere else in the station, there'd be a secure checkpoint. So on the south side, you could access the second floor stairs. On the north, it takes you up to a hallway where you get into a few different support spaces. The office is on the right-hand side there with views of the apparatus bay. And at the end of the hallway on the left is the fitness room with stairs up to the second floor. The app bay is right in the middle there, and along the right-hand side are all the support functions. And now, as we're thinking in plan, we're also very carefully thinking about the safety of the station. I mean, being a firefighter is a hazardous profession, and so we do not want to create a hazardous environment to live and work in. So the dark red indicates your decontamination areas. That's your exterior apparatus wash, your exterior decon with the shower, your decon with sink and shower, and your extractor. So these areas are for receiving and cleaning contaminated equipment before you move into sort of the lighter red zones, which is just the dirty area. And that's typical app bay and shop and other equipment might be in those spaces. And then the yellow is a key piece of this all. That's your transition area that has a positive air balance. So there's no air particles that kind of float through there. They're all kind of pushed out and kept out. And it's a great transition space into the clean side, which is on the left-hand side of that dashed line shown in green. And that contains pretty much everything else: fitness areas, dorm, community rooms, offices, etc. And then moving up to the second floor, we have stairs on the north and south side with that connecting hallway in between. All along the left-hand side are dorms shown in dark green. On the top there are the larger ones, the suites for the captain and the battalion chief, and then the smaller crew dorms. And on the right, we have our day room right in the middle, and then just a fantastic, this is like an award-winning looking kitchen and dining there. You have large space and excellent views that look out across the outdoor patio and out to the ocean. And so this is the first pass at 3D massing for the project. It's taken some, I guess, some classical elements of fire stations. You see the big red, bold apparatus bay and return drive or response drive right there in the middle, and some station 44 branding. There's a shed roof on that could be used for solar panels. And then the rest of the building, it's contemporary feel, but trying to incorporate some like coastal architecture design into that with, potentially siding, fiber cement siding, or CMU or brick for sort of the more lower durable materials. That larger photo in the middle is your front facade. Then you have the driveway or the return drive on the left, the front entry in the middle, which is covered, and then the main apparatus bay on the bottom right. So if this thing were to have your input, it would be so much better than what we've shown here. But even as is, I think this would just be one of the coolest fire stations within a 100-mile radius of the area. It would be a stunning station.
So comment on this our initial thoughts. Obviously, again, these are just ideas. This is not a design, but it shows how our knowledge of this project type allows us to do these quick concepts, and this is what we'll be doing for you guys.
Correct.
So so don't take this as a design. Take this as opportunities to explore designs.
Yes.
So with that, we wrap up our part of the presentation. We're welcome and ready to respond to any questions.
Great, thank you, Bill and Austin. We just have a set of 9 questions for you, and we'll just go down the line and ask them if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. What steps can be taken to minimize demolition, excavation, retaining wall installation, and construction noise and disruption for the neighbors?
Boy, those are all activities that are going to be critical to the success of this project. First of all, we really have to attack it from a clean and simple design approach. So So grading and retaining walls, that's a byproduct of how we ultimately shape the site. And we know we're going to have some of that. But do we look at options where the site is terraced into multiples versus a straight, one level design with a massive retaining wall? Though, we can talk about those options in terms of talking about a construction sequencing and noise and things like that. That's going to be very tricky. I mean, we all know it's going to happen with the way construction occurs. Many times that is a discussion that we would have along with you guys, with the general contractor, to understand their sequencing, maybe the way that they are planning to look at their daily operation. Maybe there's a time window. It says in there that some of the larger activities that would generate the noise and the dust and the other concerns is sort of reserved for a certain time window versus early or late, or things like that. So, but it's going to take a good, solid, simple design, a collaboration with not only your board and your fire crews on the design, but also a collaboration effort at the end with the general contractor.
Yeah, and if I could add, I think a key part is just communication. We can't avoid construction if we're building the station. It's going to happen. But if we can become teammates with the neighborhood, and so they are brought in and they can kind of help to, be excited about this end goal that we're all working towards and how it benefits the community. I think that goes a long way towards having good relationships with the project. And then some of those other things that Bill mentioned, figuring out what time is maybe the key work hours. We can actually write those into our specification. And so the contractor that bids on this thing, they are legally obligated now to follow those rules that have sort of been agreed upon between the fire district, the community, and the design team.
What is your firm's, hey guys, thanks for
Hey.
coming.
Hello.
Hey, thanks. What is your firm's approach to community input and engagement?
Well, we are active participants. I would say that about three quarters of foundation projects that do have some form of community engagement, whether that be a straight up, here's what we're doing, or a more interactive and a process that actually solicits, community concerns and questions. So our role is to be a supporting team player, or be upfront as a lead. That we can adjust how our activities occur based on what your needs are going to be. We generate the necessary data, documents, exhibits, things like that would properly display and indicate to the public what the design and the project is all about. We would take notes. We would be very good listeners. And then we would basically come back together with the district team to sort of formulate a response to those comments that we received. I think my experience tells me that public just want to be heard. They want to be heard of their opinion. Now, whether a design can actually be tailored to address those concerns, that's more of a byproduct of what the project is all about and what we can do to mitigate those efforts. Now, we may not be able to find a solution to something, right? But the attempt was there. The attempt was made. The reasoning behind the potential of not come up with a solution that would address it was attempted. So a lot of times when a public member hears that and you've done what you can, they tend to accept basically that they've been heard, and a possible solution was studied, and they're a lot of times okay with the sort of the end product at that point.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, so what are the primary opportunities for sustainability at new fire station 44?
Austin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit. I don't know if you guys are interested in it.
Oh.
Can you hear me? I don't know if you're interested in going the lead route or not, but we're well versed on lead projects. We've done this over and so many different times. But the things that really stand out is one, your solar orientation is fantastic. So we can make sure that we are getting light into the space, basically all around the building, daylighting everywhere. That minimizes your electrical costs, having properly daylit spaces. On top of that, where we have south-facing walls and windows, we can have overhangs there that protect it from too much daylight in the summertime, but allow the daylight in the cooler months, so that can passively heat your building, again reducing HVAC costs and electrical loads. The natural ventilation is another big one. Coastal breezes are great. We can maximize that and create a flow through that helps reduce cooling. And then, as much as we can get this footprint to be compressed and smaller, that might mean less site disturbance. So if we can get this thing smaller and smaller and not compromise on program, maybe that means less of the slope or less retaining wall that we're building. There's less site impacts that way. And that's something that we would be thrilled to study for you, and possibly even think of just creative solutions that like what we showed at Hollister, where we build above a driveway or we build above an apparatus bay, something to compress this as much as we can.
Cool. Our fourth question is, how will you ensure the assets of the site will enhance the quality of work life for fire personnel?
I missed the first part of that, Chief Cox.
Yeah, how will you ensure the assets of the site will enhance the quality of work life for the fire personnel?
Well, I mean, we have to look at the necessary components that are needed for your operations first. That way we can properly place those in an area that works with your apparatus. For instance, I'm assuming your apparatus has fueling on the driver's side. So those sorts of things have to be understood and placed in a manner that is appropriate for that. Once we identify those big pieces, we're able to sort of look at a planning effort or a site effort that looks at where the open spaces are, where the buffers are, where the quiet area is, where it could be noisier. So all of that plays into the operations, and then feeds into sort of the individual daily activities that happen that drives sort of their comfort with just being on site and providing services. Austin, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, also that safety diagram is something that we're always taking into consideration, so that even just this initial pass at a floor plan is thinking of how can we make this as safe and functional as possible. And we touched on that, but like the feasibility study, we're looking at some of those had the decon room sort of right in the middle of the station. That's not ideal. And so we're trying to kind of isolate all those as much as we can from the rest of the project. And then of course, just comfort, and some of that was touched on with the day room and the dining room and the kitchen and this lovely outdoor patio that you have. Those things would be a huge enhancement, and just great spaces for R&R and enjoying a superior quality of life while you're in the station.
Perfect, thank you.
So you talked about safety features during both your presentation and the answers to the questions. What do you consider to be the top 3 safety features that you would include in your design?
Well, top of the list is proper zoning of our mechanical HVAC air distribution in combination with exhaust. We want to be able to control spaces from a positive or negative pressure standpoint, to either supply or exhaust those spaces properly. Number one. Secondly, is looking at surfaces that don't create hazards, meaning mainly it's going to be your floors, your slab. In the app bay, there's been a recent push to look at a stained concrete app bay, just to sort of bring up the finish. When you do that and you start polishing, you now start to introduce a level of coefficient issues that could cause, guys that if the slab is wet and they're kind of rushing, it could cause some slipping issues. So that's something that we're working with a proper specification of the number one, the concrete, and then number two, the way the concrete is polished and burnished. Austin, do you have one to add?
Yeah, just fighting for the correct site layout where you can get your return drive or your response drive separated from like a public entry or public parking, so you're not having cars or something prohibiting a response there. Also trying to lay that out for maximum efficiency. Otherwise, I think that covers most of it.
I would say to a lesser degree is your door access controls. Certain doors should be access controlled in such a manner that it restricts access to those not on the list to enter. So there's ways to package our hardware components with the doors themselves to sort of create that separation and security zone at the doorways.
Thank you.
Will you consider shop-built prefabrication of building components as well as conventional on-site construction as a means of reducing cost, improving quality, and reducing on-site construction noise?
Yeah, most definitely. There's many agencies who are challenged right now with the way construction costs are. So we have to look at alternative solutions. The pre-building route, the sort of the approach where we look at a portion of the building, maybe the app bay is a metal building, but the other components are more stick built that has more of the need for the individual breakdown of spaces. We can look at those options. But yes, most definitely, it is on pretty much on every one of our projects kickoff meeting to talk about what this project is about. What is it that we feel the community deserves, and what the budget would support.
Thank you.
What is your firm's experience building a fire station in a neighborhood?
The neighborhood?
Yeah, building fire stations in residential neighborhood. What's your experience in that?
Yeah, very good question. I would say that 80 to 85% of our projects are stations that are in residential neighborhoods. Whether it's the first one in, meaning that the housing tract hasn't been built yet, or the last one in where it's established and now we're looking at a new station, whether it be replacement of an old one or a new station that didn't exist there before. There are a lot of sensitive issues dealing with the residential neighborhood. And I think, as long as we plan it correctly, we look at the proper buffers between parcels. We look at separating sort of the zones where a lot of noise can be generated from the neighboring parcels. We look at the ability to return and respond in a manner that the lights on the engines aren't flashing directly at homes. We have to look at all of those features and challenges and come up with the best option that we have. But our experience is vast in terms of neighborhood architecture or neighborhood design. And lastly, when you go into an existing residential neighborhood, you're not going to be building a glass box. You're going to be building something that's more of a complementary architectural style. And we're very comfortable in looking at that type of style to match sort of the context that's existing.
Great. Next question. What design features would you include / adapt to ensure minimal obstruction to the ocean view for the neighborhood?
Austin, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, so I would probably keep the roof. The first thing is keep it as low as we can across the building. So if we can keep that second floor plate at 12 feet instead of 14 feet, that makes it a little tighter. We have to make sure we have really good coordination between our mechanical and electrical disciplines to have the space above your first floor rooms to make that happen. But if we can compress it as much as we can, that's step one, and that's what we're going to look at. And then it's shaping the second floor roof areas in a manner that is as unobstructive as it can be. And so there'll be some site investigation for sure, where we're taking a look at the different properties that might be affected. And if we can push maybe a higher massing to certain parts of the site, so we can keep framed views, then we'll do that. I noticed that on the right-hand side, there's a two-story building there that I think will be impacted, but directly behind the station, it seems to be pretty open. And so we do have some ways where we can manipulate, keep it on one side, but not the other. And we'll try to do that as much as we can. Another way is to, if we have space, put mechanical units on the ground versus up on the roof. That helps us lower parapet heights. But again, space on the ground is at a premium. So that'll be just another puzzle piece to try to figure out.
Thank you. I think we got one more question, Cynthia, is that right?
Last question is, what's the earliest you can put that first shovel into the ground?
Well, you're gonna put the pressure on us, aren't you?
Do you want to design before we start shoveling? Because I'll just start shoveling for
Probably.
you tomorrow.
Design first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's two approaches. First is sort of our schedule and how quickly we can work. We can work very, very quickly. I think a lot of times where projects tend to quote unquote sort of stall and lose momentum is in the sort of process of approval, which is sort of going to be outside of our control, but something that that maybe you guys have a little bit of influence on. But how quickly we can work very, very quickly. Now the other part of it is that potentially depending on schedule and maybe your funding mechanism, if it needs to be sort of encumbered and a certain schedule, maybe we could look at separating out a site package and a building package, things like that, where we advance the site package quickly, and then concentrate our efforts in getting that approved. And while that's in approval, we then follow up with the package engineering efforts. So that way you're able to essentially fast track essentially the construction. In terms of a date, it's hard to say. We can't. Let's say if you gave us a go ahead today, I would say comfortably that we could produce on our side. We can produce a agency ready for review set of plans within 6 months. We can do that very easily. But there's going to be checkpoints, progress reviews. meetings and agency reviews and things like that's going to extend it. So our typical timing on a fire station project is we look at a 26-month period. Okay, so 12 for preparation of design document and approval, and then 14 for construction.
And just to add to that, if there's a need to move quickly, and this is just to emphasize Bill's point, we can move very quickly. We had a school project recently, and it's a different type of project, but there was a need by that school to get this thing designed and under review ASAP. And so we condensed what normally would be like an 8 or 9 month process into about a month and a half. I know it was a crazy whirlwind of a thing, but we just made it the top priority and made it happen. So that's the kind of ability that we have because we have deep resources and we have people who've done this over and over and over again. So part of that will depend on you guys and how much of a urgent need that this design is.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, that's the end of the questions for you guys. I really appreciate you being here and look forward to being in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the chance to be in front of you one more time.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Hopefully talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
guys. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, welcome. I'll hand it over to you, Carl, and your team.
Thank you. Carl Campos, architect. I'm here today with, how do I get my next slide here? There we go. There we go. Thank you. I'm here today with Ron Golden, who you met in our interview last week, and Greg Barton's our project architect, and he's here today with us. Patrick Crosby is our structural engineer. And of course, Ron. So you met the two of us last time. We did visit the Station 41 and did a tour. I was graciously accepted there by one of the firemen there and gave me a tour around the station. And we looked around the outside. It's an old building. It served you well. It needs to be replaced. And so build a modern firefighting facility there. That you've got terrain here, just like over on 41. That impact the site. And so it'll be a challenge that we're up to building a new fire station here for you that meets your needs. You can see your retaining walls around the perimeter, a lot of overhead power. Just for fun, there's a gas meter that's on the property, so we know you have gas and utilities. This is Station 41 from the street. They tucked it into the property here. I was again given a very nice tour of the station. Probably significant here is the amount of retaining wall you had to build in order to get a buildable fire station site. And so Greg Barton, project architect, and our fire station expert will take it from here and walk you through some of the studies that you did in your programming phase.
Yeah, I think the most important thing we wanted to start out with was the turning radius diagrams that we were provided with, and trying to make sure that we can do this without impacting your existing retaining wall. So looking at the studies, I think the studies we have are for option 2, two-bay station. For the rescue truck looks fine. For the aerial truck, it's going to be really tight.
Coming down the switch.
So I don't know if you want to, can you get there?
Sure.
That's the rescue. The next one's the aerial, I think.
Okay.
So you're right up against the back retaining wall with that. So I mean, this is another, this is a good starting point. And it looks like, they've done their due diligence in looking at the actual truck and the actual turning radiuses. So we would have to take a closer look at this, of course, as we develop a plan to make sure that that works. Looking at that site, one thing that popped out to me is that you don't have an apron where you can take the apparatus all the way out of the app bay and park it without sticking into the app bay. So I don't know how big a deal of that is for you guys, but most districts like to get the truck all the way out and close the doors. looking at option 1, which is a 3-bay, option 2, which is a 2-bay, and then option 3. We think option 3 is just really kind of off the table. We don't see how those turning radiuses will work at all. And there was no real study for the turning radiuses for the 3-bay, so that would also have to be looked at. And then just looking at the plans, would love how you have your hot zone on the other side of the station, with your decon, your turnout, and extractor. So that's something that we recommend doing. So it's good to see that there. Just some questions that I had looking at, you have a separate day room that's separate from the kitchen and dining, and that day room doesn't have a window. I don't know if that's what you guys typically do or not, but we would be looking at that as we get some plans. And of course, looking at your whole program. Like Carl said, we didn't really have a program, so to look at, but we would start out with that, making sure you've got everything that you need. Another thing I did notice was a separate laundry room that's not in the hot zone for firefighters to use for their own, bedding or towels or whatever they want to wash. And that's something we typically put in our stations. So that's pretty much about it.
Okay. So you're going to tear down the station, and we're not sure what you're going to do with your firemen and your apparatus. We're working on station 55 and 54 major tear down remodels of mostly the living quarters on 2 stations in San Rafael, and over to the left here you see the apparatus bay tent, and there's a modular on the site. So how you do that will be interesting for us, and we need to get a head start on that as to where the firefighter is going to live during this rebuild. We have significant 2-story fire station experience. This is fire station 70 in San Pablo, just recently completed, 3 bays. It won 2021 Firehouse Design Station Awards and the APWA Project of the Year for Municipal Buildings Award, first place. And so key here is we were able to develop training areas for the firefighters. So over here on the left-hand side, you see a window and a raised elevation accessible where you could practice ladder access through windows, ladder access onto roofs. We also have a large area in the back for lay down and training. Inside the station, we have in the app bay, it's a 3-bay station. We have a stair system with manholes and various issues there to train the firefighters for climbing and getting in concealed spaces. So successful from the fire department standpoint is they were able to take a brand new station and include the ability to do training at the station. This is a detox unit. It's a big sauna. Firefighters go to fires and events and they get smoke contamination, and they end up waking up at night and they smell the smoke sweating out of their body. So here's a NFPA approved sauna that you get in, ride a bike for half an hour and try to get sweat and get all the detox out of your body. We put this is the first one for Con Fire that we've implemented at Contra Costa County Fire. We're doing a 2-story station on a very tight site in downtown Oakland at San Antonio Park. These are some studies we did. It's a back-end station, not a whole lot of room there. And so we did a number of studies, did a very large community engagement process. And in that process, it was determined finally and ultimately that we would build the fire station on another piece of property. But here's the cross sections. This actually was a 3-story station with training and workout facilities midway on the 2nd floor. But those are some cross sections through it. So we ended up going from there over to a site nearby that has an old Safeway store on it, and it turned into a Blueprint company. And so we're implementing a 2-story station on that property, and also the macro facility, which is people would answer 911 calls that are non-violent. They send social workers to the site to save time for the police. And so we're doing that. We're in the process of doing our community engagement process for this site and conceptual designs. This is the Fire Station 54. What's unique about this was a concrete apparatus bay and a wood frame single-story living quarters. And we had to tear it down because it was sinking into the mud, reinforce the ground, the soil conditions of the site. We were in a FEMA floodplain, so we had to do a 2-story station to get the living quarters 10 feet above the FEMA floodplain line. This is right next to the bay. So that station is wrapping up, being completed. Here is the Point Malate Fire Station that Greg did design. It's beautiful design, and it incorporated an historic building there that was the original fire station. And so we turned it into a community center. And this again is a 2-bay station in a very tight site. And those are some of just the layouts of the number of dorms. We're going away from 3 firefighters to now 4 firefighters in a minimum station. These are the exterior elevations. On the left here at the top is the historic metal building that we turned into the community center. This was the original fireplace, and some of the other exterior elevations on it. So we're currently working with Tiburon Fire, Chief Pierce there, on a 3-bay back-end station, very tight site, similar to 44 site. You have more room there, but this is definitely a back-end station, and it's a 2-story building, and we're in design on that. That's kind of the exterior architecture for that. Very simple, cost-effective. One of the things we talked about was brought up was our fee structure and how we developed our fees and stuff, and it was a long, detailed. You asked for hours and time and personnel. So I reduced our fee based on knowing your project better, based on our interview and looking at the site more closely. And are typically architectural A&E firms, architectural engineering firms, including structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, technology, civil, landscape, joint trench design, corrosion engineer, and Title 24 Energy Calcs with cost estimator. That number is right there, about 721,000. And then stuff that you have probably to do, for instance, probably a SQL analysis because of San Mateo County. These are stuff they're typically paid for by the district or the city or the municipality. Geotechnical soils engineering, hazmat study of an old building, you're going to tear it down. You got to have a hazmat study for that. Utility boundary topographic survey, community outreach. These are numbers associated with that for CEQA for a total project of 926,500. The A&E side 721,000. So I felt we needed to further explain that, and knowing the project better, these are the fees that we would propose for the job. I'm pretty much done. Any questions?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Share screen. Where?
Are you ready? Shall we start?
Sure. What do I do with my?
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. What steps, here's the first question. There's 9 ultimately. What steps can be taken to minimize demolition, excavation, retaining wall installation, and construction noise and disruption for neighbors?
It's a great question. Well, we typically would have a plan. The builder would have to come forth with a plan for hours of construction. You could start on a certain time. You can't work weekends, and you have to be done by a certain time of the day. If we have to do retaining wall designs, you have to notify everybody. You should meet with your immediate neighbors and let them know what's going on. The biggest deal on this station would be, how many bays, how many app bays can I get? What size is the app bay, and will the turning radiuses work? And so we're hopeful that we can come up with a station that the turning radiuses can work with minimal retaining wall design on the site. And based on the studies that you had done previously, we think we can come up with something to save costs and do that. But generally, hours of operation, the days of operation, and they're going to a lot of electric tools now, not using gas-powered tools that make a lot of noise. And so that's another criteria that we found helpful.
They asked about excavation too. That's going to depend upon the soils report and the foundation design.
Correct. Did we answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. What is your firm's approach to the community input and engagement?
I'm glad you asked that. We just went through a very extensive community engagement process with Fire Station 4 in Oakland. It took several months to do. It had occurred during COVID, so we had instead of a big meeting in a city hall somewhere, we did everything by Zoom. Very successful. We met with the Vietnamese community, the Black community, the Hispanic community, the Chinese community representatives, and the neighbors directly around the park there. And so you have to do it. If it comes up that you need to do it, it's a good idea. The more information the community has about it, the more informed they are, the easier it will be during the whole process. So Oakland's a very active community place, and so we spent quite a bit of time doing that there. In other stations, like for Contra Costa County Fire, we've actually met with people in their living rooms and had host a coffee and cookie, and brought out our boards on an easel or a PowerPoint and presented it to the neighbors so they were informed of what to do. Some areas we've actually had to build some sound walls around the station to ensure the neighbors would have peace and quiet during the operation of the station. But it is important if you have to do it, you should do it right.
Great, thank you.
One benefit you do find is oftentimes the neighbors can give you input that is very valuable to the design of the station.
Yeah.
They know things, they've lived there for years, so they know local conditions a whole lot better than we will.
Yeah.
So getting their input is really helpful.
Yeah, and a lot of there's a lot of perception that the firemen at 2 in the morning are going to turn on the siren and go out of the station. That doesn't happen, and it's really good to meet with the community and let them know that at 2 in the morning the siren's not going on. The lights will come on, but it's quiet. It's a generally quiet operation.
Which is why we like a drive-through station if we can versus a back end.
Yeah.
You don't want trucks backing up at 2 in the morning.
We only hit the siren if Bruce has been getting on to us because he lives right across the street. So.
It's true.
So question 3, what are the primary opportunities for sustainability in new Fire Station 44?
That's another great question. So in California, with the building construction types and all the stuff we have to do for energy conservation, you're going to end up with just standard construction with a LEED silver building as a minimum. It'll be LEED silver. So you're going to, last stations we've done, we put solar panels on the roof. Fire Station 32 in Oakland, we prepped for solar panel, or Fire Station 32 in Alamo. We prep for solar, so energy usage is prime. Using sustainable materials, we try not to use stuff that takes a lot of VOC and stuff. On the exterior, we'll do a lot of plaster, stucco, metal trim finishes. But you will end up with a LEED silver building with just the basic materials in California that we use.
One thing we can keep in mind is this is going to be a 75-year station. You're going to have this for a long time, and we like to build them that way.
Yeah, so and just being more specific, Lutron systems for power control. You'll have LED lighting, so the power will go off to the room when you leave it. You can control the lighting. We'll put in mechanical systems that allow each individual room to be separately controlled. Thermostat with split systems. That saves a lot of energy and power usage consumption. Using low VOC products throughout. That's a big deal in California, and a big deal that you should embrace, because off-gassing from new building syndrome is a problem. And so we try to use all kinds of low VOC stuff.
Thank you.
Question number 4, how will you ensure that the assets of the site will enhance the quality of work life for the fire personnel?
The access to the site?
The assets, so the facility itself.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second part of the question.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just translate a little bit. How will you ensure that the new station site will enhance the quality of the work life for firefighter personnel?
Gee, yeah, it should be way better than current station 44. So, yeah, what, just the interior, one thing we like to do is we like to put the dorms on the quiet side. You don't need to come back from fighting fires or a traffic incident at 2 or 3 in the morning and have traffic noise bothering you. So we try to isolate the dorms, make them acoustically sound. What else do we do?
Keeping all the contaminants on the other side of the app bay, away from the living quarters.
Yeah.
That's a big important thing to
And
do.
having individual dorms for every firefighter, so you can have 2 bunks in a dorm, but there's not 2 people in the dorm itself. You have your own bedroom for privacy and quality, sound attenuation, and especially the quality control with the HVAC systems, thermostats for every room, so that you can set your room temperature for what feels good for you. So it'll be way better than current 44. 41's a handsome station. I'm sure those issues were all incorporated in 41, the new station.
Yeah, and then, I don't know what your philosophy on bathrooms are, but a lot of the stations we do now we do single occupancy, bathroom facility, 2 or 3, like 1 per dorm. I don't see anything. I just noticed it now that there aren't any bathrooms on this plan. So,
Yeah,
um,
this is very loose in that.
so, you can, that's one thing of making the environment better is,
Yeah,
the restrooms.
it has got to be comfortable for female firefighters.
Right.
That's been a forefront in fire station design the last 15, 20 years. And so you got to make it so that the facilities are adequate for both.
And we use durable materials, stainless steel countertops, things that are easy to clean, easy to maintain.
You can do polished concrete floors or put in a floor system that's easily maintainable. So it makes their quality of life from maintaining the station better. We don't want to put a lot of landscaping around a fire station. If we do, it's got to be low maintenance type stuff. Let them do their jobs as firefighters, not have to maintain the landscaping around the station. So
Those
Things
things
like
like the vegetable gardens.
yeah,
Great, thank you.
All right, number 5, what are the top 3 safety features? I know you've mentioned several already, but what are the top 3 that you'll include in your design?
Yeah, the hot zone away from the living quarters. I got a question. 2-story station, you guys into the pole,
fire pole.
fire pole?
They don't have a 2-story station, so it'll be a first.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So, sometimes that's a safety issue, and it's a real safety issue in terms of how you design it to keep the toxins from the aft bay getting into your living quarters. You're building a chimney basically right into your 2nd floor living quarters. So that's something to look into when you do your design.
So safety with a fire pole is an issue. Safety with the truck turning radiuses, leaving the station so that you're out of you can look both directions easily without having to think half the trucks is still in the bay, and having the correct vehicle exhaust system in your app bay, so that, like, we use Plymovent a lot, and that'll cut down on exhaust emissions in the truck when it's fired up, ready to go. What else, guys?
4-fold doors,
4-fold doors are really good to have. Gets you in and out fast.
keeps people out.
It keeps people out that in urban areas, we always do the folding doors because the roll-up doors take too long. But safety for the firefighters, it's mostly a health and safety issues for us.
Thank you.
Will you consider shop-built prefabrication of building components as well as conventional on-site construction as a means of reducing cost, improving quality, and reducing on-site construction noise?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Thank you for asking it, maybe. We've been practicing, this firm's been around for over 40 years and we've seen prefab stuff. We're doing prefab stuff now. We've considered using metal buildings for the app bay, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, these are essential services facilities, so they have to be designed to 1.5 times the seismic requirements for a normal building. And so having those combination of prefab components, as long as you're not hampered with your program, you can do it. You can do it as long as it doesn't affect the actual livability and functionality of the fire station. And most of the prefab component stuff that we've seen is limiting to your construction. So a stick-built building, masonry-built building, traditional methods, probably going to get your best results for the station. But yeah, we've considered it, we've used them for it. But it can't be limiting of your program and functioning of the station.
Right.
The big factor on that is going to be the contractor himself. We did a station up in Monarch Park where they did have it prefab and brought in, and it was a real headache for the contractor. Things just didn't fit right. They ended up trying to reframe it on site. And it ended up costing the contractor a fair amount of money to make it work. It was their choice to do it prefab, but it really didn't work out that well. So it just depends on how much experience the actual contractor has with building a building like that.
We work with a large builder that builds multi-story, 3-story mostly apartments, and they prefab all the wood frame stuff. They actually do gang nail shear walls where they don't use any plywood, and that's their methodology. They have their own framing company, and they built several projects like that. And now it's kind of a push between doing that or just stick building it yourself. So we can do it. We've done it. If you want to do it, we'll help you incorporate it, and we'll just let you know where it affects the functionality of the station.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so what are the top 3 safety features you will include in your design?
Did we do that already?
I think we have.
Is
I
that,
think we had that question.
is that a different question or is that?
7,
So we're going with that. You didn't answer 6, did you?
yeah.
Did you just ask 6?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I backed up. Don't mind me. I see my asterisk, which one I'm supposed to have. What is your firm's experience building a fire station in a residential neighborhood?
Oh. Most of the stations we built are in residential neighborhoods, most of them. We're in Walnut Creek. We build all over the Bay Area, and there's so much growth going on that the housing that we end up building stations to serve the new housing that's been added. Let's see, Station 70 was downtown San Pablo, so it was a civic building. But Station 16 in Lafayette, 32 in Alamo, we just finished. That's in a residential neighborhood.
East Garrison.
East Garrison's in a residential neighborhood. So we try to make the architecture blend in if possible. That makes the people feel like they're just getting a larger residential look, nice look to it. But you have to be cognizant that neighbors want their privacy and they want it quiet. And so we would design the station so that it fit as best as possible into the context of the neighborhood, respecting views. Nobody wants to have a fire station, 2-story fire station with windows looking down into their backyard. So we screen with landscaping, things like that. So you have to be sensitive to it. And that's where the community engagement process really pays off, is you get to meet with the neighbors. In Alamo at 32, we met with 6 or 7 different neighbors that were directly across the creek and that wanted to assure that we provided privacy. So we actually built a 6-foot wall 10 feet from the station to keep views in and out both directions the same. It was a wood frame wall, fairly simple, and they were happy with that. It gave them their privacy.
And sightline studies from a daughter's bedroom to the station, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's important to do, and it is an issue, and that's why just the fact that the siren doesn't come on at 2 a.m. and not doing a backup station where the bell for the backup on the apparatus is making noise. interfacing with the community is pretty important. And we end up on all of our stations to date, when we're done, the community's glad you're there. They're glad you're there.
And the good thing with this fire station is you are already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On what you're replacing with what will be a nice looking building.
Yeah, we looked, you're gonna be 2 stories there most for sure, I hope. And there's buildings around there, residential buildings around there, and view shed will be an important factor.
Well, that's a great transition to question number 8, which is what design features would you include or adapt to ensure minimal obstruction to the ocean view for the neighbors?
You know, that's a great question. So here's what we do to reduce bulk and mass. We would take the roof forms. Let me quiet. We would take the roof forms and use hip roofs instead of gable end roofs. Gable ends go like this, and hip roofs, they have a peak on them and they shed to the side. We could do flat roofs. That would help. Properly designed and done for waterproofing and stuff. So we could angle the building. Hopefully you would do, what we would do for sure is do view studies, photographic view studies from the neighbors from all around, and try to come up with a building design that is not limiting of views. We've done story poles on buildings. We've actually constructed story poles and put tape on them so you could see what the shape of the building would be when it's built. So that's another methodology. Sometimes you just can't save views for everyone, but going through the process and trying your best to save the most is pretty important to do.
Great.
And finally, the last question. When is the earliest the first shovel can hit the ground?
Depends on you. You sign us up today, we'll have your design done in 6 weeks. So what do you think? You get signed up, you negotiate your contract, takes about 30 days. And then we would take 6 weeks back and forth in design, making sure we met your program. And then community engagement would be in there. You have a CEQA analysis. I think you said you had to do that for San Mateo County. So it's going to take probably 60 to 90 days to do construction documents. So I would say you could have the building shovel hit the ground 6 to 8 months from start, pending CEQA, pending community engagement process. But that's about what it takes on a normal station.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you have design review there? Do you have a city process for design review? Planning?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, so that, you got to add a couple months in there for that at least. But you want to run these schedules parallel. We've actually done buildings where we've come up with designs, submitted to staff, deem the application complete, get in the public hearing process. But knowing that we're gonna be successful, we start the construction documents. So that when we're done with design review, the next day we file for building permit. So there's ways to cut time off that way. It's a little risky, but we're pretty confident we can do a station that will be embraced by the community. We've done over 50 of them. So
One other factor in there is if you can get pre-qualified contractors,
yeah,
that'll help a lot. It'll help on your getting started and it'll help a whole lot on your getting completed.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your time. We will be in touch in the very near future. And again, thanks for coming back and chatting to us again.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. Thanks.
You.
Bye.
Recall.
All right. Welcome, Nathan and Chris and Mark from SBA. I will turn it over to you and then we'll ask some questions at the end.
Yeah, thank you very much. And good to see you again. And Great. So you want to just hop one forward and I'll introduce the team. So my name is Nathan Herrero. I'm a principal with SVA Architects.
I'm Chris Bradley, a senior project manager with SVA.
And I'm Mark Graham with G2 Solutions, and I specialize in public safety and fire stations, working with SVA.
And we would lead your team for Fire Station 44, representing a much larger team that you see here on the slide, both internally at SVA with our project team, whose headshots you can see on at the bottom: Bob, Velma, Robert, Dave, and Judy, and then our consultant team. Sort of full team for the project: structural, civil, MEP, environmental consultants, and cost estimator. And it's a team we've assembled with a lot of comfort, all working together, and I really think a great fit for your projects. A little bit of introduction about SVA. So we are a full service architectural firm, which includes architecture, obviously, but also doing a lot of planning, our own in-house interiors and sustainability, as well as landscape architecture, all in-house. With offices across California, Chris and I are based in the Oakland office here, serving the Bay Area, and that's where all the work on this project would take place. And really our specialty across the entirety of the company is public projects. So civic projects like the ones you see up on the screen, public education, all sorts of varieties of projects that are sort of to the public good and public benefit are the projects that we take pride in and we've spent our careers on. So you'll see examples here of lots of different projects, including fire, public safety, community-facing civic projects, and civic offices. And we really span the spectrum. We think that gives us great perspective on all the different components that go into these buildings. And just rehash some of the stuff from before, but we work with a tremendous number of cities in California, what you see up on the screen, cities and public agencies throughout California that we have worked with in the past 10 years. And so we'll bring that breadth of experience here to Station 44. I'll let Chris talk a little bit on this one.
Sure. We've also got a breadth of experience and knowledge on public safety projects in particular. Here's just a few of the ones we've completed in the last few years. Of note, in particular at the center, is our work with Allen Hancock College. We did a comprehensive public safety training complex for them. And at the time, it was the only facility that was able to offer a complete suite of all the training components for certification for fire, for paramedics, and for police, all in one location. And we'll talk more about that project in detail further in the slides.
So with the second chance at this, Mark was able to join us, and I think let Mark kind of go through, this is some of the vast list of public safety projects that he has worked on.
Yeah, so again, so as a small company, I mean, I grew up in California, moved from California to Texas about 6 years ago, but I only work on public safety. And when I say public safety, it's police and fire facilities across the United States. As you can see here, it ranges from Florida to Maine to Washington to California. So I pretty much have covered the map. If I had to count, maybe 75 plus fire stations, probably 50 plus training centers. So when it comes to a lot of the different things, and I know that working with a lot of departments across the United States, they're always curious about what's happening in other states. You know, what's California doing? You know, what's the move in Texas? What are they doing in Florida? just to see if are they on top, are they doing something better? So the neat thing is I can kind of bring a lot of different focus points to design, to station standards that I'm seeing or seeing movements, which are kind of fun, because I mean, I'm not to say that California is not a great state, but some of the other states do have some really interesting design concepts that I think I'm seeing more and more move through the United States. So talk about
Go
these.
ahead, Mark. Yeah.
Some of these are just some of them, like as Chris mentioned, he and I worked on the Allen Hancock, which is the top left-hand corner. The top right-hand, that's Bob Bowling, which is actually in Fort Worth. It was a major project. It was police and fire. You can see the fire train on the lower side. The bottom left is Eagle Pass. Again, it's a public safety, which is the fire station is in the lower right-hand corner, the police facilities in the upper left-hand corner, and the EOC. So it was a joint facility. And again, a lot of these public safety, and when I use the word public safety, a lot of it is because it's joint, both police and fire together.
These are just a few more of our projects we have worked on. We are currently working on the new public safety headquarters concept for the city of Mountain View here locally. We're working together planning the new public safety training facility for Irvine, as you can see on the bottom right. So a lot of these buildings, as Mark said, are a combination of the two primary public safety types, police and fire, into larger shared facilities where they have that expertise with fire.
And here's a zoom in on our Allen Hancock public safety project. Color coded there in the upper right hand corner is the kind of separation of the components within the classroom and training building. Fire on the left, police on the right, and then shared facilities in the center with the tan. And the big thing about that project, other than it was a massive undertaking by the college, was that there were so many departments and stakeholders involved in that process. And really, I think more than anything else, that project's successful because we had such a rich and robust stakeholder engagement process. And that really started on day one and went all the way through the project. And it was very much a project that was about communication with the client and their stakeholders. And of course, the end result is a pretty great project. It includes all the components for training, at least as of the standards just a few years ago. In addition to the classroom building, they've got a Class A burn house. They've got a Class B tower. There's actually a shooting range that the police use 100 yards. We've got an EVOC track, a skid pad, confined spaces, and the list sort of goes on, but it's really one comprehensive location for all the public safety training that goes on in the Central Coast. And it's been a great example of our work together.
Up on the screen are just examples of fire station experience. And these are all examples in the state of California. So Culver City, San Clemente, Glendale, Vernon. I think there's one more slide of these. So Mark just worked on some very close neighbors in Menlo Park and San Jose as well. So a variety of different station types and sizes here. I think the one thing you'll see with many of these is the item we talked about last time. It's sort of the think context motto to designing these facilities is that both SVA and G2 really do take the time to consider the environment where the stations are built. What the context is there, surrounding buildings, the neighborhood, and design buildings that'll fit in and complement that neighborhood. I think that's especially important at a site like this one, where the neighbors, where the size of the lot is limited, where we will be necessarily very close to the neighbors, and we need to be good neighbors with the station. And that's something that's part of all of our projects of every type.
And just as important as the exterior, that's ultimately a major community focus and a symbol. The interior is just as important. And we know that your staff is going to be spending many long hours, days, in fact, at the station. And so really spending a lot of time developing that design, making something that is very, in some ways, homey, something that's very comfortable for the staff, but at the same time, have a little bit of design pizzazz, if you will, is something that's really important to us and will be important to your stakeholders. And so we will certainly spend a lot of time talking about the interiors, making sure that we get the look and feel of that, as well as the function really dialed in, because this is going to be a lot of folks home away from home for quite some time. And here's a couple other examples of work that we've done that, well, not directly a fire station, but things that I think you can get a feel for our approach and our design experience, our design language, and just get a little better sense of us in a broader sense. Upper left is the Lodi Unified Maintenance and Operations Facility. And a lot went into that as sort of functionally based as that is. It was really something that we also pushed the design quite a bit as well. San Ysidro Public Library was one that really gained a lot of attention and was kind of stepping outside of the kind of normal look of library. The city really wanted to do something that was eye-catching, a little bit pushing the envelope design-wise. Similarly, the LA One Stop Development Center, that was very much something that the county was looking for, something a little bit cutting edge, and that was appropriate to them and their desires. In the city of Riverside in the bottom right, very much a contextual project that's very much the look and feel of Riverside, and they wanted to combine that traditional feel with a library with a certain amount of gravitas, and I think we were pretty successful in combining those elements. A couple more examples here at the Cupertino Library. That was one that we just completed, and it was a very unique project in that the expansion was being built between two existing wings, and they really wanted to do something special, like most civic projects that really enhance the look and feel for the community. And I think we were really successful there, especially with the interior design, and it's a very, very popular space these days if you go out there. And then a couple other examples of our design work here on the rest of the page. A few more examples on the screen here.
Yeah, and I think part of the reasoning behind some of these examples is, again, what Chris talked about, sort of the quality of life for the firefighters at the station, and making sure that the spaces that they're occupying are up to the level you're looking for, that all of these things play into a number of factors, recruiting and retaining staff, just sort of the general well-being of your staff are all helped by having facilities that they can use proudly and enjoy. And that comes into all sorts of different project types, but really bring that experience with the living spaces side into the fire station work. With that, so obviously we SVA and G2, we worked on the feasibility study for the station. So we are intimately familiar and developed the program working with you, and all of the equipment requirements and space attributes. So we're familiar with the site, its challenges and opportunities. I think if we flip to the next one, Chris, and help explore some different alternatives for the site and how it might lay out. As we've had that, there's sort of a 3-bay design in the feasibility study. And we worked to try to make sure that we had the circulation, but also this pull-out space in front of the station, and how all these things fit in the sort of awkwardly triangular sites with some real limitations, but it can fit there. But it'll be a fun challenge working out all of the details for this project to fit on this site.
So I guess I always have to be the bearer of not the greatest news, but you know, one of the things that has come a long way, and I say a long way in the last 5 to 7 years, is our wonderful building codes and energy codes and NFPA, and how they've applied to fire station. It used to be fire stations, if you remember codes years ago, like 15 years ago, they had one little designation under type B occupancy, and we were able to build these and not really worry. Well, now we're getting into a lot of different things that we have to implement, everything from ADA, storm shelters, even air quality inside the app bay and adjacent spaces. You know, how does that work? What about a 2-story design versus single story? So, you know, and just to let you know, every one of these, while we may call them challenges, they can be overcome, but they are things that as I see on the negative side, they basically are bringing cost to fire departments that weren't in their normal station. So if you've been in a station that's been built over 15 years ago, and you look at some of this, you go, we never had to do this. And I would agree. However, the quality of life, the quality of the stations, and the quality of the people working inside has definitely been increased. So it is a very heightened approach to the occupants, which I agree with. But I do want to make sure that nobody thinks that these stations are getting cheaper to build. They are getting more expensive. And a lot of it isn't because the designs are getting crazier. It's really because just as your apparatus trucks have come a long way from the trucks from 15 years ago to today, the same with the design of the stations that are really about the life safety, life cycle, efficiency, and sustainability of the station.
And then
I'll talk just a little bit about our overall project approach. The way that we do our design is very integrated. We internally call it a studio model, where essentially the design team that is here today, the folks that we showed at the office at the beginning of the presentation along with us, we're here at day one. This same team takes it all the way to the end. So we'll be with you during design, construction documents, during bidding, during construction administration, and there's just continuity from start to finish. And that has a number of benefits. And probably most importantly, there's that continuity of relationship and knowledge of the project. And so decisions that we make early on in design, they find their way all the way through to construction. And there's somebody out in the site that looking at the construction and wonders, why did we do this? We have the answer because we were there the whole time. We've got the continuity of information and make sure that things that we talked about early on are happening when it gets to actually doing the construction. And then we've got a process that we typically go through. It's been tried and true on projects over and over again. We'll of course adapt it to the specifics of your stakeholders. We'll tweak things, but overall, this is our framework from which we do a project, and we make sure that we get the kickoff and consensus building going. We have those site stakeholder meetings. We have those broader stakeholder meetings. We get all the input that we need. We do our data collection. You've already done the programming, but we'll go back through the programming with you as we're starting our conceptual design to make sure nothing's changed in the intervening months, and then really dive into the nuts and bolts of getting you from that initial design to move in. One of the big things that is really on everyone's mind right now is construction escalation, and the way that we deal with that in a wise manner is, instead of just waiting till the end and getting a cost estimate or the actual bid, we're stopping at every major milestone of the project. We're working with the cost estimator. We're checking where we are versus our construction budget, and we're making small changes to the drawings, tweaks if we need to bring things onto budget. If we've gotten some construction costs going up that's faster than we're anticipating, we can stop and make those corrections during the design process, and so then we don't have a surprise at the end. And that's just been a very effective way of avoiding some of the pitfalls of a rapidly changing construction environment. And then of course, part of this is making sure that we have quality documents. We have a quality control process in our office that this project will go through, and part of that is we've got a full-time quality control director, Dave Foreman, up on screen, and he will be a sort of second set of eyes, a neutral set of eyes, someone that's not working on the project day to day, that's able to come in and assist us with our quality control. and be that second set of eyes. And he'll look at not only the architectural work, but all the engineers as well. We've shared our own internal quality control comments. There's a couple examples on screen. Make sure that we've picked those all up, and then we have a solid set that forms the basis of our construction work. So essentially, that's the process from start to finish, at least from a sort of 100,000-foot view. And with that, I'll turn it over to Nathan.
Yeah, to sort of wrap up and open up to questions, but I think, as we stated, we think our team is a great fit for this project. Just one, due to our experience in this field, and two, I think our design approach and how we go about working on the projects, especially with the close neighborhood environment there, and our contextual architectural approach really makes us well suited for this work. And I think we would really deliver a design that would complement the community around Station 44. And with that, we'll take your questions.
Okay, thank you, guys.
So we have 9 questions. We have asked the same 9 questions of all of the candidates. And the first one is, what steps can be taken to minimize demolition, excavation, retaining wall installation, and construction noise and disruption to neighbors?
So the way that we approach the building architecture and systems, we can help minimize the disruptions. So no one's going to get to no disruptions, but I think there's a definite way to work the construction to minimize them. Demolition is going to be sort of a given. It's going to be demolished, and clearing the site and building the retaining walls is a given. And I think what the most we can control is how the new building is constructed and what is the least disruptive way to build it. I think I suggested last time a mat slab, but there's a way to do foundations that certainly minimizes excavations and the shoring impacts for the neighbors. There's a way to design the buildings such that the walls can be framed off-site and brought on-site. Just minimize the noise and the amount of days that are built sort of erecting the structure of the building. And I think those are the key things where our team can work to give you a design that minimizes disruption.
Thank you very much.
Okay. What is your firm's approach to community input and engagement?
Chris, I'm going to let you take that one.
Fair enough. Well, it really forms the backbone of our design process. It's very important for us to look at the broader swath of stakeholders, not just the people that will be working there, although they're, of course, a very important part of it. But this is a community building. This is something that is going on in and for the community. They are stakeholders as well. And so we would like to spend a concerted effort with the community, getting feedback at the early parts of the design process to make sure that we're designing for their needs as well. And the only way to understand their needs is to talk with them. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. We can set up various scenarios. We can do it online, in person, lots of ways to accomplish it. But fundamentally, we want to spend time at the outset of the project, really diving deep with your site and community stakeholders. And so we would set up those meetings with you. We can talk about the details of how those go on. But really, that's the foundation of things. And again, there's lots of ways to do it. We'll spend time talking with you about the details, but important to the design process.
Thank you.
All right, so what are the primary opportunities for sustainability at New Fire Station 44?
So there are any number of new sustainability requirements that have come around as part of the latest edition of the building code, which just went into effect 3 weeks ago. But there's lots of great opportunities, and I like to take an approach where, rather than talking about equipment or solar panels to start, the basis of any good sustainable design is the design of the envelope, the actual outside of the building, how it's oriented, where the windows are, how elements are shaded, where the insulation is put. And those are the sort of overlooked items that I think really can make the building a sustainable success or not. You can really make an envelope that makes the energy needs, the HVAC equipment size, all those things can reduce before you start talking about solar panels, before you start talking about equipment ratings. You can make the building efficient. And that's really what our first step is to look at the design of the envelope and drop the baseline way down as much as possible. And then after that, then we are talking with our team at IMEG and the MEP about what are the most efficient systems, what will solar panels be required, and they will be required as part of the project under the current code. But our goal is to get the baseline down so that once we start talking about all of those things, the solar panels, all those things can be really impactful because they're generating electricity towards a smaller target.
I think I'm gonna add to that because working on LA stations, I think the word sustainability is often looked at two different ways. A lot of people look at it on the way of energy and efficiency of building. But if you work in public safety like I do, the word sustainable takes on a whole new meaning. Sustainable is my building going to sustain the test of time? And fire stations, as we know, they're not built today and torn down in 5 years. They're there 10 years, 15, 20 years. So I always look at sustainability as what kind of a building is going to be able to make it through the test of time. And so it comes in everything from selection of materials to the finishes we use, to the flow of the people, because if we don't have the people flowing correctly, it is not a sustainability. It is not going to serve well. So I always look at sustainability as what do we have to do to make the building? And like I said, as Nathan alluded to, selection of materials should never be overlooked. Everything from the finishes of the apparatus bay floor to the finishes inside the room. If we don't think of how a firefighter uses the building, you'll never get the right finishes. And what happens is you end up with a building that might look pretty, but in 5 years from now, it doesn't look pretty. And that does not serve well because, most fire departments, the problem is they're dealing with, overburdened labor rates. They don't have the money to come back and continue to remodel stations. So we want to make sure it's done right up front, not 5 years, 10 years from now.
Thank you.
All right, this next question has to do with firefighters' quality of work environment. How would you ensure that the new station site will enhance the quality of work life for the firefighter personnel?
Mark, you want to take this one again, or we can? Yeah.
So I think when you look at, the firefighter, again, as we alluded to in the one slide, even a lot of the codes have really come behind. I mean, I think they're a little slow coming around, but we are looking at everything from the quality of the firefighter, from the point he actually enters into the building to the point he actually enters into the apparatus itself, moves away and comes back around. And so we look at everything from the point he walks out of his dorm room, and that comes in from everything from making sure, even if NFPA requires latching doors and positive pressures in certain areas in order to make sure that fumes and noxious gases don't move into the spaces. We look at finishes, our finishes transferable of diseases. As you can see in a lot of new stations, they're getting away from carpets because carpets seem to trap. So I think a lot of that is going to be space to base. I could probably talk for 30 minutes on every different aspect of how we have to look at the firefighter environment. But just understand that we look at everything from day one until operational day 25, that how a person moves between shift changes, that germs, that everything. And I think COVID has really taken a new approach to a lot of people because they realize that contamination, transferring between departments is bad. And I've worked with departments now where they've had 2 shifts down because somebody in shift B had COVID. They came in, shift C all of a sudden got it, and we've got to stop that. We got to make sure that we mimic what some of the other stations are doing and how to basically proactively stop this.
And I think on the technical side, and there's also the experience of being in the living spaces within the station, and that's very important to us, and why we included Robert Palayo on our team internally as our interiors director, because we want to make those spaces positive for the firefighters in the station, that that feels like a pleasant place to be, because they are going to be there for what is a large portion of their week. So we need them to be able to enjoy and that experience.
And then that comes back to the fact that we want to spend a good amount of time with your stakeholders, really working with them and finding out their unique needs, what they're looking for, so that we can bring the design into a solving their individual stakeholder input sorts of things. We're creating this for you and your staff, and working with you to define the specifics that we need to bring to the design.
Thank you. So the building, of course, will have many, many safety features, but just how would you prioritize the top 3 safety features that you would include in the design of new Station 44?
Well, I'll answer this one, and I'm gonna say indoor air quality, and that basically kind of translates in both the apparatus space and also the living space. So it's what we do with air. I think the other is selection of surfaces. I say selection of surfaces because sometimes we get this, we as architects, we get this great idea of certain surfaces that are what we don't think about, are slippery when they're wet, but even the wrong selection of surfaces, because firefighters move, but they don't always move on a carpeted, nice padded surface. They have to move quickly. Sometimes they're not moving, they're not thinking. So we have to think of surfaces. And I think the other is again, talking about like how COVID has really impacted the design. I think the transference of germs between personnel. How do we minimize that? How do we limit? And again, simple things like, you can put the UV protectors in the mechanical systems. It's looking at self-opening doors sometimes. So the doors that are most often used, try to get those so that we're trying to get people away from latching and stuff, so that they're not always grabbing with their hands, because, one firefighter out for 2 weeks because he's sick cost the department so much money, because you're paying for back pay and you're also paying for overtime. So I would say, the transference of germs, I would say air quality, and I would say service selection.
Thank you.
Will you consider shop-built prefabrication of building components as well as conventional on-site construction as a means of reducing cost, improving quality, and reducing on-site construction noise?
Yes, absolutely. I think that was part of my answer to the first question, but yes, we would look at what elements can be fabricated off-site, and that'll vary as we get into the design of the building. We're looking at all the individual components. But this is a solution where there are a lot of great contractor partners on, because it benefits everyone. It's not just the neighbors, it's not the client. There are distinct advantages in quality and time with elements that can be assembled in the shop and shipped to the site and sort of erected in place. And we will explore all of those opportunities. We do quite large projects where not a single wall is framed in person on site. Everything comes shipped to the site from the framer shop, and the level of control they can have over dimensions and quality that way is can be really impressive.
Thank you.
Okay, what is your firm's experience building a fire station in residential neighborhoods?
Well, I can say that of the 75 or more that I have done in a specific distinct residential neighborhood, I would say at least 1/3 of them are within residential environments. And I think that goes right back to your question too about community, because it's funny because everybody loves fire stations. They want one nearby. They love the benefits of it. But when you actually ask them, they don't want it next door. So you always have that issue about everybody across the street, the next door neighbor, and down the street. And when you sit in some of the community meetings and you understand why you understand their concerns, but I think the biggest thing is you always want to be transparent, understand their needs, because believe it or not, sometimes I've had some very unusual issues. We had an issue in Orange County where just because of our approach coming in, and every time the fire truck returned back, his lights shined in the neighbor's windows. We didn't know that until after it was built. Nobody could do a projection, but we were able to work with them. We ended up putting a screen on the wall afterwards. But I think there are going to be concerns that can be mitigated. But I would say more often than not, they're all residential. Yes, you have the downtown stations, which are always fun because you can get a little more pizzazz in your design. But adapting to the residential is always the biggest challenge, because we've got noise, we've got sound, we've got hours of operations, everything that the neighbors don't want to deal with, we have to deal with.
Thank you.
All right, number 8, what design features would you include or adapt to ensure minimal obstruction to the ocean view for the neighbors?
Yeah, I think this was some consideration in our feasibility study already, and looking at the topography of the site and how the higher elements of the 2-story elements would be laid out on the site. Obviously, the east and west sides of the property, the neighbors are at quite different elevations. And so that's part of what we would look at is how do we mass this building, do roof lines, and really minimize the view impacts. I think one good part that we've talked about and we know will happen is that we are planning on building the station a couple feet lower than the current station is. So as part of the regrading of the site and retaining walls, we'll drop the grade so that the building is closer to the street elevation at the driveway, which is going to help. And then we've got lots of great tools. We design everything in BIM in 3 dimensions. So that lets us do lots of great things. We can take all of the surrounding context and have it 3-dimensionally, have the building 3-dimensionally, and basically look at it from any angle, any view to help minimize the view impacts.
Great.
All right, and the final question, how soon can you put the first shovel into the ground?
So I know that we proposed a work plan and a schedule. I would say we will go as fast as the process allows, but as Chris mentioned, you really don't want to I think give short shrift to that first initial planning phase of doing the outreach, getting the stakeholder and community input at the beginning. It may feel like that's a commitment of time where we could be off and running, but I think that's saving you time later. That's saving you redo time. That's saving you complications in the end to get that solid foundation for the project and know that everyone is at least on board and that everyone knows we have heard them. I think in terms of total overall permitting and design approvals time, it unfortunately does take time. So we're probably looking at early 2024 before the construction begins. But if there are really some drivers of construction, we can always also look at a phased permitting or construction process that sort of jump starts, fast tracks some of the demolition or site grading work into separate packages so that construction can start sooner.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys. That wraps it up. I appreciate the time and the kind of endurance to go through all the questions with us.
And Mark, it was so nice to meet you in person, sort of.
Oh,
You know.
yeah. I happened to be out of town on the last one. And he's like, I'm like, oh, so sorry, but yeah, glad I could be here.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
afternoon.
Bye.
But that motorcycle crash where they're happening on the dirt coming down the road.
All right. So Kai, I just was gonna highlight what the process is for evaluation and selection real quick, if that's appropriate.
That's fine. Yeah.
So just for the process, qualifications were screened, and the top candidates were reviewed by the committee. And that was based on the actual proposals that were set forward by the 4 firms. The committee here brought 3 of the firms back to interview, and the district is weighing the following options or the following characteristics for making a decision. The consultant's understanding of the district's desire and general approach to completing the work. The consultant's experience with contracts of similar complexity and magnitude. Qualification of the staff and sub-consultants being assigned to the project. Demonstrated ability by the consultant to perform high quality work to control costs and to meet time schedules. The ability of work efficiency with district staff. Ability of work effectively with district staff. Cost, recommendations from clients, contractors, and other knowledgeable people. Record of success on other fire station projects. Claims and litigation history, accessibility to the project for the district, and the ability to prepare plans in accordance with the district's time schedule. The Land and Structures Committee, which is here, will review these proposals and these interviews. The selection process shall consist of the deputy chief in consultation with this committee in reviewing the proposals in accordance with criteria discussed above. One or more of the bidders will be invited to interview, which 3 of them were. This committee and the deputy chief will evaluate the respondents based on the interview and written proposals. A recommendation from this group will be forwarded to the district's board of directors. This recommendation will be presented at a regularly scheduled board meeting, which the respondent may be requested to us. It's a lot of words just to outline kind of to ensure we're all level setting on what we have done and where we're.
Yes.
So with that, we need to make a decision.
All right. Bruce?
After looking at all the qualified candidates, listening to what they say and seeing their work experience, I'm gonna recommend to the board that we go with the PBK because of their experience.
Great.
I want to thank the larger community for bringing these 3 great proposals to us. All 3 of them are perfectly capable of doing this project. It is really a matter of, and it was interesting to see this presentation, this public presentation on Zoom. Actually brought a different perspective to things. PBK brought the most, in my opinion, the most careful consideration of the site and programmatic elements and represented the values that we had set forth for this community. They seem to be very much about this site, this project, this design. They certainly have the background to do the work. They have an excellent reputation. Their previous work for other fire stations was outstanding. They made it about us. They made the presentation, and the graphics they presented, again, they weren't overdone. But they were clear. They were communicative, and they were really adequate to the correct quality level of this project. They weren't spending a lot of money overly polishing this, but they also really communicated in clear ways. And I think that ability to communicate clearly is going to be very important to our neighborhood, to our neighbors, and to the rest of the project team. So that was very strong. They clearly had some wonderful ideas about solar and daylighting in the south facing walls. All 3 firms could probably do that equally as well. They understood the critical elements very, very well. Their ideas for the day room and the others, the outdoor spaces were excellent. Their priorities of the safety features were very good. The HV systems were right on target. A number of the firms mentioned the air handling and what a huge safety issue that was. I guess they were good listeners. They were empathetic. You got the feeling they would show up. All firms of these firms have excellent reputations, but the recommendations that we had followed up on indicate that this team is a very responsive team to the projects themselves. So strong candidates. The next firms that we talked to, LCA, interesting, completely different personality. They obviously know their business. This is what they do day in and day out. This is it. They recognize the key design element. I share their view is going to be that the arc of the entrance and exit of the fire engines, that is the major form giver on this site, and they went right to it and working with that. The programmer pointed out that oftentimes people who live around the project or work in the project have the best ideas for the project, and I appreciated that aspect. That was useful to this. But there wasn't much beauty. The aesthetics of what they presented, it seemed as they really know their technical business. But I didn't see much inspiration in their design. And again, it's not that we have to go for the appropriate level of quality, but we do need something about an inspirational quality to this building for the fire personnel who are going to be spending so much of their professional time there. The final firm we interviewed, SVA, they really did a good job presenting themselves. They are the highest design firm, it seems, if you will. Their focus on aesthetics and the design principles of this was the most outstanding. But I'm not sure how important the job this is going to be for them. Their Johnny Hancock facility is extraordinary, but it's just a different level from what we're trying to accomplish here with a single-use facility, a fire station. The individuals so knowledgeable, empathetic. Mark clearly has amazing technical knowledge, but again, we're looking for what is going to be most appropriate for Fire Station 44, built in Moss Beach, who is going to guide us through this process, listen to the neighbors, really take the time to work with this site until we have exactly what we need. And it just seems to me that of all of these firms, PBK is the one that is the appropriate scale, the appropriate type of response, and the appropriate design sensibility to bring to this, and that they really value this scale of project.
Great. Great.
Yeah, so for me, I would say PBK obviously put together the best presentation. They put the actually knowledge of what we were asking for. They had put work into the project by showing us their designs and what they wanted right out front and actually catered to our needs. And it really wasn't about all that they've done, even though they touched on it, but I feel like the other firms are really just kind of show and tell what they've done, but not really focusing on what we've asked and what we wanted to see. And I feel like when we asked the questions, they answered them all pretty thoroughly and to the best. And I think they're the only ones that actually really answered the very last question, number 9. They're the only ones that actually said 26 months of this and 14 months of construction. And based off of that and their knowledge and experience and how they truly cater to our needs, I definitely say PBK is number 1 in my opinion.
Great. I will have the same sentiment in the sense that I think we had 3 highly competitive qualified firms come forward. And I'd say they were all accessible. They were all very professional to work with. They were all very responsive. So I think just finding what was that small lead in, or what put one person a little bit head over someone else was what I was really looking for. PBK for me came down to the personnel, the people that we were going to work with. The cost was straightforward and consistent and clear and defined. And more importantly, their experience locally with Station 4 and Station 25 and the recommendations we got from those local agencies was, for me, kind of gave me that head above everybody else. But LCA, I did think they had brought some really specialized details forward that were really valuable to listen to, such as having a contractor already pre-qualified, such as thinking about sustainability more than just being green, but being there for the long term, not being a temporary facility.
And the sauna was pretty good too.
And the sauna. The thing that really let me down with LCA was I felt like they were getting shifty on cost and pricing, and I did not like seeing cost change proposals in a proposal from what the physical proposal had. So that for me was a red flag. As far as SBA, they've been amazing to work with on the feasibility side. I really enjoy their team. I think I share some of the same sentiments as far as kind of what their project specialties seem to be with some of the larger training facilities and regional centers. I think we'd have a great time working with them. I did think the answer to the timeline was a little bit, I don't know. I didn't get a sense that it was fair for them. So I guess my deciding factor in all of this is looking back at the qualification and what we're qualifying them on comes back to their demonstrated ability to perform high quality work. And PBK did it for us already. Like they showed us what their level of high quality work is. For me, that was okay. So with that, Kai, it sounds like unanimously we'd like to recommend PBK for the contract.
Okay, sounds good. Jonathan, I'll be in touch with you then about the form in which it comes to the board next meeting.
Perfect. That sounds good. With that, I think we can adjourn the meeting.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good
Thanks, guys.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you too.